Okay, guys, I think we're going to get started. So, welcome to the November edition of Peer UX. Yes. So tonight, 5 fellow Peer UXers have volunteered to present on 5 separate topics. So they will be giving a PechaKucha-style presentation, meaning 20 slides, 20 seconds each, and a variety of topics. At the end of each 20-slide deck, that's an opportunity for you to ask Q&A to the presenter, and then we'll proceed on to the next person. So, without further ado, the first presenter is Dory, so let's give her a round of applause.
All right, first of all, cheers to everybody for coming out, because today's Wednesday. Monday, let's get into this. Cheers. All right, so a little about me. I'm fresh out of boot camp at General Assembly, and I'm from Hawaii, so I just moved out here in Bay Area in June. So this was a client project that I did for a startup, basically a wine app that's designed for millennials. I don't know if that's
Personally.
Oh, okay. Pretty picture, nothing important, just look at it. So. You're right about the awkward pauses.
This was bigger.
Okay, so funny story. I just really like the visuals of this, and I didn't know that it was airplane windows. I don't know if anybody saw that. Did you see that? See, I didn't know that either. Perfect. All right, so this is a splash screen. So basically, it was a startup that is a greenfield project, and they basically had nothing. And what they wanted us to do was to validate their assumptions about millennials and what millennials want out of wine, their wine drinking behaviors. You know, they're just Vivino out there, it's delectable. There's 100 different kinds of wine apps. Yeah. And they want to understand why millennials may like wine, may not like wine. Maybe they're intimidated by it, or what it means to drink wine for them. Is it too sophisticated? So I found this quote right here to understand, you know, what's a statistic. So, yep, the challenge is to validate whether millennials are the right target for a wine app. So designed for millennials, like the verbiage, the way that it's designed, the way that they understand it. How do we approach this? So they basically wanted us to have a splash screen, onboarding, a palate quiz to personalize their taste. And then also, something else I forgot because I have wine as well tonight. But the idea is that we're going to focus on Spotify. So Spotify, I'm sure all of us have them. Some of us don't, I don't know. But it's basically based on what you listen to, it personalizes the kind of wine you listen to. So it's the same idea. So this is just some of the main screens. And then this is the process. So we did extensive research. My partner right there, Kate, right there, we did a project together. She's amazing. We did extensive research, contextual inquiry, some qualitative research, just talking to millennials about what they want out of wine. You know, like, I'm sure there's a few millennials in here that like wine. Raise your hand. You like wine? Perfect. I love it. Cool. All right. So you're born between 1981 to 1996. And this is the area where things are shifting and changing. You're entering the workforce. You're becoming an adult, and you know, you want to have some kind of sophisticated sense of yourself. So according to research, most millennials don't know too much about wine. They know some stuff. They know what maybe a Merlot is, or that it's red, or if it's white, or rosé is pink. They know what they see. And so from there, we started talking to them, and Kate's right over there, and we did some affinity mapping. And a whole bunch of information, and actually it was very surprising. And then the next slide you'll see, because this thing with PechaKucha, I have 20 seconds. So, all right, so the idea here why I did this was to help other people understand that there are different facets of millennials and the wine drinking behaviors. That there's the fact that they rely on experts, the fact that they are their palates are forming. So at the age of 21, that's when your palate becomes more defined. When you're younger, you have more taste buds. As you get older, you man, this thing's fast. Anyway, I'm just gonna move forward. Anyway, we found out that they're financially conscious. Price matters, and they also rely on their friends for opinions. So we ran through this whole comparative analysis, looking at different apps and what they offer and what's missing and what, because But YNAB is not anything different from what it already is. How can we differentiate ourselves as a YNAB designer from millennials? How do we stand out? Because the truth is not anything different. So Kane and I were talking about a cane for YNAB, where you can grow your own material. So grow with your own material. So you can put a bunch of weird different stuff, like you put beer and lemons in there. But the whole idea is to help them grow their wine and to invest in it. They want to have a personal connection to the wine. So that's something that's missing from these wine apps based on comparative analysis. So we built the MVP, and this is just based on our competitive and comparative analysis and what we think would help build this app without spending too much money, just from a greenfield project perspective. And concept sketches, and you'll see in a little bit that we have some wireframes in there. We did have our onboarding, our palette tests in there, and we wanted to basically personalize the wine that they would want to buy based on their personal taste, based on what kind of chocolate they like, what kind of coffee they like. You want something that's special to you, right? Like, I'm sure we all feel like we're special people, so it's okay. I find them special. So anyway, this is our wireframes. Just real basic. You wanted to get them to understand the app, start through it, know what it means, really just discover what your wine palette is, rate what you drink, similar to a lot of the wine apps that are out there. And then this is the kind of like the Spotify. If all of you have Spotify, you kind of recognize your head rotation for your friends are listening to or drinking. And you can swipe through it based on what you drink. So the more wine you drink, the more recommendations we can make for you. And you can also rate your wine right over here. That would help with the recommendations. And so we also had a visual designer that was on the team. And she came up with this color palette right over here. I'll be transparent. In the next version of this app, I'll probably come up with a color that would be more unique. Because the red, everybody has red in a wine app. So just to be honest here, that's what it is. So that's something I am working on currently. And so this is the high fidelity. So right over here, maybe off the bat, looks very Pinteresty. Millennials like Pinterest stuff. So yeah, we're laughing because we know. So it's very visually appealing. And a lot of the research we found is that millennials like to pick wine bottles off of the labels. So, I mean, we're all guilty of it. I'm guilty of it. If it's a pretty bottle and it tastes like crap, like I will still buy it because it looks pretty and I can put it up in my room. This is the high fidelity for the Spotify version, wine drinking recommendations, and then you can rate your app, you can record it, and then you can post it. And cheers. Thank you. All right, do you have any questions?
How'd you find the test?
So, okay, I'll be honest. We our friends. Dr. Friend. We had it was a 3-week sprint, so we wanted to be for recruiting purposes and just time efficiency. We just asked our friends. We're all millennials. So yeah.
Did you have an app to have them look over, or you're just?
Oh, we did some usability testing. I couldn't put it here, but we had some usability testing and have some people look at it and give some feedback. So if you want to talk more, I can definitely provide that. Yeah.
Well, let's give Dory another round of applause. Next up, we have another Chris. Not I. I don't know.
Can everyone hear me talking? I generally talk pretty loud, so
Talk with,
I didn't expect this slide. Everyone, my name is Chris Sinners. Thank you, Dory. That was super awesome. Let's start. So, my name's Chris. I started out doing that style of drawing. Then I went to the Academy of Art, did some industrial design work to design this kind of stuff. Then most recently I went to DA, and learn how to do this kind of stuff. So that's why I'm here tonight. I love coming to these events. It's super fun. So let's take a minute and talk about food. The presenters on here. But not food. That's how much Gobble would make if they generate or in new sales if they were to add this UX experience. So let's talk about how. First, let's go over a quick agenda. We're going to talk about our user. We're going to talk about food boxes and Gobble in particular. We're going to talk about some cooking apps, a huge problem in the market, and then we're going to talk about how I fixed it. My partner Rob is out here to illustrate that. So first, let's talk about our target user, which is the timid cook. So tech-friendly, generally in the urban environment, gets very overwhelmed with too many choices, isn't comfortable in the kitchen usually, just does the same types of meals all the time because that's what they've learned how to do. And they're willing to spend about 30 minutes per meal. All right, so the goal of this was to enable the timid cook to feel more comfortable in the kitchen by taking away as many barriers as possible and letting them learn how to cook in the comfort of their own home. All right, so when it comes to food boxes or meal kits, there are tons in the market. There's 170 worldwide. It has a multi-billion-dollar potential growth in the next couple of years. The U.S. alone made $400 million in 2015, and there are tons of time-saving solutions that are all about $8 to $15 or $8 to $12 a box. So let's talk about Gobble for a second. Gobble's unique. It offers 10 curated items on this menu every week. They're all locally sourced, fresh ingredients based on the season. But they're also a tech company. So in the tech world, they've used an algorithm to improve menu selection, and it improved it by 40%. They've dropped their drop rate is lower than their competitors. Most people have to use it for a couple months or basically hooked. And then they've raised $2.9 million in funding. All right, so let's check out the problem with boxes. So for our timid cook, there's a lot of unanswered questions that you can't put on this meal card. For someone who's not comfortable in the kitchen, things like timing, things like doneness, there are a lot of things that they just don't understand. So in the cooking app realm, there are about 22 million users worldwide. So a lot of people have cooking apps. They love looking up ideas, but that's a lot of choices. So then you get choice overload, or they call it choice paralysis. Or in this case, I call it a high cognitive load. When you just have so many choices, you don't even know what to pick. And if you go to the grocery store, it can be overwhelming if you're trying to select fruits and vegetables that you've never purchased before. All right, moving on to sort of the two markets and where they exist. So we have the Gobble market, and then we have this cooking apps and this huge space in between where they have tons of users that they can generate and profit from. So let's do a quick math. There's lots of numbers here I'm not going to go over. The only real important one is the possibility of 20% more users to the existing user pool, which would be pretty awesome. So that works out to 3.8 million a year, which is the number I started with. So the solution that we developed is Gobble Pro, which is an app dedicated specifically to the meal box industry for Gobble. And it offers up a QR code reader, interactive learning, and gamification. So conveniently on the new meal card, there is a QR code. So as soon as you get your meal, unbox it, scan it with your app, immediately goes directly into the interactive screen. And from there, you can start walking through and check marking the items that you need for that meal. If you have questions, you can press the information button. That'll bring up more in-depth explanations for things that our timid user is not very well versed in. Throughout the meal, during certain cooking opportunities, we try to offer up them lessons on the difference between sauteed garlic and raw garlic and how to sweat onions. And then I also offer an affordance to show how far through the meal that they're existing, that they're progressing through. And then lastly, gamification, we're rewarding them by every time they learn a new meal and they work through this progress, they get better and better at cooking. So they should progress up and up the scale. And ideally, at some point, we would like to offer rewards. In the next step world, more research, probably throw in some social sharing to get more people involved. Again, like rewards, product placements, just to generate revenue. And then, of course, there's a bit of a packaging issue with waste. So, thank you. Appreciate your support. Questions?
How did you know that people were having trouble cooking the meals that they ordered?
With meal boxes particularly, they aren't, because there's a very niche market of people that will buy meal boxes because they feel like they can navigate that part. But there are a lot of people that are hesitant to even invest in it because they're afraid they're going to screw up the meal. So then they stick with things that they know they can make. And for someone who's a passionate cook, it makes me sad to think anybody could go into a kitchen and hesitate making anything that they're hungry for. So that's kind of where this all originated from.
Yeah.
Hey, very nice presentation. Somewhere in one slide, I saw gamification,
Yes.
which is basically using game elements on game applications.
Right.
So can you give examples of what kind of gamification is?
I use low level, so I was basing it a lot like how Waze rewards users throughout the process. So basically, there would be a direct point system based on the meal box that you ordered. I didn't elaborate in here because I didn't have time, but I would foresee each meal having a difficulty rating, some sort of a diversity rating, and then as you sort of compile those elements, you build up your score. And then I guess later on, like in Waze, there's like a global score thing which could be applicable.
Well, thank you, Chris. Next up, Shannon on flipping designs. Let's give Shannon a round of applause.
Okay, somehow I already started, so can I go back to the first slide?
Yeah.
Oh, it's bad.
Okay, well, anyways, I'm talking about before and after experiences. Oh yeah, we have this too. Okay, can you hear me? Is this working?
Yes.
Okay. So sometimes things are not necessarily better after something changes. It's Elvis before and after Thanksgiving, sort of. I was thinking, I wonder how all of us are going to feel in the next Thanksgiving. Here's before and after a haircut. This looks almost exactly like my dog. Sometimes you just can't see until he gets a haircut. So in this case, things I think are better after the haircut. At least for him. Very cute before the haircut, though. The first slide, I was going to introduce myself. I'm Shannon Soper, and I work for a company called Gatsby. Okay, so this is the design game, the before image. This is what I'm working on. It's a side project. I want to ask people to introduce what this is. How many of you have ever had, said yes to something and then regretted saying yes? Yeah. So I'm building this for you and myself. So this is a worksheet that helps you decide when to say no to something. So, however, it's a worksheet. You have to reprint it every time you use it. Okay. So I didn't create this. Somebody else did this. I think that kind of, a lot of people don't have Twitters today. A lot of people want to save space. So my first solution was thinking like, oh, I could make the worksheet reusable, laminate it, and I've been doing that myself actually for about a year. And I'm using erasable markers on the laminated version, and it's possible maybe my husband had this idea actually, so I can give credit to him. And then the other solution is I've actually noticed a lot of problems with the worksheet itself, and a lot of them I could only solve through just thinking through this in like a step-by-step flow, and I thought a website or an app would be a really great way to do that. So just kind of ditching the physical object altogether. Another problem that I noticed was this is a pretty complex group of stuff of information. So this is decide how strongly to ask for something, decide how strongly to say no. Whether you go down the left side of the page or the right side of the page, it totally depends on your situation. So are you asking for something or deciding to say no? I decided to just stick with the right side of the page for now to keep it simple and just serve kind of one use. And so the solution there, I don't know if you can read this, but so because this game depends entirely upon your situation, it asks you what your situation is first. So you write down the request that someone is making of you. So I wrote here, my dog wants me to play with him every day long, all day long, every day. That's his request. Okay, here's another deficiency of the worksheet. It says, put a dime in the bank for each of the questions that get a no answer. That kind of sounds like nonsense to me, or like what dime, what bank. There's nothing on this page that describes what that analogy even means. They're imaginary, and I decided maybe a different name for the game could give people into like what it's about earlier. So I thought of like the note game. The game actually can show you when you should say yes as well, like when that's in your best interest. But I think most people have a problem with saying they don't say no enough. So for the most part, I think this game makes more sense. Also, all of these questions, like can I give the person what is wanted? They're all yes or no questions. So you might notice there's nowhere to write yes or no. You can't like remember your answers. And I found myself always writing them in the margin of this worksheet. So I decided this was a fairly straightforward problem to solve, and you just have to give people a place to write yes or no. So it says, can you do the thing being requested of you? Yes or no. Here's another problem. The order of questions actually matters, and the second to last question says, do I know what I'm saying no to? And I was thinking, if you say no to that question, like, no, I don't know what I'm saying no to, you probably ought to pause the game until you can say yes. Because if you don't even know what the person's requesting of you, how can you proceed to decide if you're going to say no? Also, can I give the person what is wanted? So if someone asks you for $1 million, you don't have $1 million, it's pretty clear you are going to tell them no. So it's kind of like game over. Why would you keep going into the game? So here's the GIF. Let's see if I can get it to play. So this asks you, do you know what is being asked of you? If you say no, then it tells you, since you answered no, this might be a good time to pause and ask the person to clarify what they want. I'm actually curious, has anyone ever, like, someone's asked you to do something, you really don't understand what they want you to do?
Yes.
Yeah, happens a lot.
For sure.
Okay, so here's before, during, after shearing. In this project, I relate a lot with the sheet that's only half sheared, so this is definitely a work in progress. I did a lot of kind of before and after images, but it really is kind of in the midst of testing it with my friends. This is one of my favorite quotes from the person who created the game, the original game. People have not caused all their own problems, they have to solve them anyway. So a lot of, like almost everybody, almost all of you raised your hand and said, oh, I have trouble saying no. I don't think any of us are at fault for not knowing how to do that or struggling with it, and we can solve it ourselves. can figure out how to solve that problem. And I really want to help people solve that problem in this school. Thank you so much.
Any questions?
So what amount of, how many dimes do you take to actually say no? Is it just over 50 cents, 60 cents, or is there a sliding scale?
Oh yeah, it's a sliding scale. So yeah, that's an excellent question. So the more questions, it kind of depends on how you answer the questions, whether it tips the scale to like, yeah, you should say yes actually to this. And then if you, depending on your answers, you can say like, oh, maybe just like mildly say no, but if the person like tries harder, or if they give you more reasons why you should do it, more evidence, or you know, if something changes, maybe you could, you know, change your mind and say yes. And then it gets stronger and stronger all the way till the strongest kind of no would be like, I will never ever do that. And that's pretty rare. It's like if something like just violates all of your morals, all of your values, there's absolutely no reason for you to do it. Yeah, not in your best interest or anyone else's best interest. And the game, that's what's cool about it. It's pretty flexible. It can help you with something someone asks you to do at work, all the way to like a really different situation. So, yeah. What other questions do you have?
I have a really random question. Does the logo have anything to do with those fortune-telling balls that you shook?
Yeah, I was thinking
Nice
of Magic
work.
8 balls. Like,
Yeah, that's what
yeah,
the
or
first
like,
thing I
what
thought
should
of
I say? Is it maybe or
was
yes or no?
being like 7 and being like, should I go to the whatever? And then it says something completely unrelated to what you're talking about.
Yeah. It's like someday. You're like,
Yeah. Okay.
What other questions do you have?
I have a random question. What kind of dog do you have?
He is a Coton de Tulier. They're the national dog of Madagascar. So they're on like Madagascar stamps.
The reason I ask
Curious.
is because I have a pocket blue and people
This is
mistake
the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's also white and fluffy.
Yeah. Pretty white dog. What other questions do you have? Timeline for making this? I don't know. It's a side project, and I'm intending on sharing it for free. The original resource, it's like you can find it online for free as well. And I just, it's like made a huge difference for me. So first timeline, I have no idea, but yeah, you can follow me on Twitter. And I know that. You don't have Twitter? Oh, well, I have the same. Yeah, just tell me afterwards if you want. Like,
Let's give Shannon a round of applause. Next up, Ashlyn's going to tell us how to pitch. Let's give Ashlyn a round of applause.
Hey guys, I'm here to talk about how to pitch anything. When you hear the word pitch, you'll probably think of investors and raising money for your startup, but I'm thinking bigger than that. What I really mean is how do you present information to someone who's never heard of it before? So in a sense, we're all pitching all the time. When you're at a job interview, you're pitching yourself and your skills. When you're on a date, you're pitching your abilities as a partner and a potential match. When you're at a networking event like this, you are also pitching. Anytime you meet somebody new, you're telling them why you're interesting and they should spend the next 5 minutes talking to you. So in a sense, we're always pitching. Pitching is really just telling a story. So it could be a presentation like this. It could be a resume that you put up with some study. It could be a demo for a product or a design. But the ability to convey information in a clear and concise way is one of the most important skills you can master. It'll help you no matter what you're working on. So how do we do it? The very first step is you have got to know your audience. And I don't just mean what's their job title and their backgrounds. That's important too. What I really mean is what brain state are they in the moment they're sitting down to watch the presentation, or look at your demo, or look at your resume. So what do I mean by brain state? when you are creating your presentation, you are going to be using your smart brain, a very logical, rational part of your brain, right? Because you have an outline, you're making a slide deck, you got all these bullet points and information that are in your head that you want to convey to your audience. So it's really tempting to just put all of it in front of you. It's a huge mistake because your audience is actually listening with their crocodile brain, which is a very emotional, kind of basic way of listening to something, right? Like you guys right now, some of you guys are zoning out, thinking about dinner. That's how most audiences are, right? They don't want information that's really complicated. They want something that's really simple to get. So your goal as a presenter is to force them to pay attention to what you're saying. And the secret to doing that is to make it simple. The crocodile brain does not want to do a lot of information processing. It just wants to get something that's pre-digested, like baby food, and fed to it, right? It doesn't want to do a lot of work. You, as a presenter, have to boil things down into its most basic element. Here's an example. It's 2007. Steve Jobs was presenting the iPhone for the very first time. No one's ever seen an iPhone before. This is what smartphones look like back then. Did 100 things. There's 1,000 features. It's very complicated. Instead, he goes on stage and he just puts up 3 really simple icons. He says, today, Apple is inventing a new phone, and a new iPod, and a new internet device. And he has a really simple animation where he has those 3, and it kind of rotates them like a cube until they all merge into one icon. And he just says, these aren't 3 different devices. We're making one device that does it all. It's called the iPhone. The audience goes crazy. They give him a standing ovation. They haven't even seen the phone. Just an icon that did this. And it was that simple that he got the concept across. That's what they understood. Another example, Tesla had their Model X when it's an SUV and it's got these wing doors that open up into the side. But it's done in a way where you can park it next to like a wall and it would still open. It's really hard to believe. They could have done a slide like this, which would not really have helped to get that point across. Instead, they had these 2 vans on stage and they parked their SUV right in between them, this tiny little parking spot, and they did it on stage. They opened the doors with like an inch to spare. So that 5-second door opening gets the point across in so few words that no amount of PowerPoint slides or specs can get. The best people at this is Hollywood. So Hollywood is professional storytellers. In the original Star Wars, out of the 3 movies, so 6 hours, Darth Vader is on screen for 34 minutes total. So anything that you remember about Darth Vader and his breathing and the lightsaber battles and the evil was all done in half an hour. So how did they pull that off? They did some tricks, right? So like when they filmed him, they would film him against really dark backgrounds. So it looked like he would be blending into the background. It makes him look larger than life. When he's off screen, characters in the movies who go watch, they're always talking about him, how scary he is, how menacing, how powerful he is. So they boiled down the concept of this evil, complicated character into something that's just really basic. And they kind of fed it to us almost subliminally to make this character come to life. All right, let's bring this back to tech a little bit. Let's say it's 2012 and you're pitching a location-based dating app, right? It's got geo matching and cards. There's some kind of swiping. There's a chat interface. So imagine Tinder pitching Tinder before Tinder existed on a PowerPoint. It's really complicated. Instead, what they did was they mocked up the interaction, the basic swiping interaction before they did anything. And in about 3 seconds of this interaction, it's really clear what this app does, right? It makes it much more easy than just building a bunch of PowerPoint slides. So interactions are very, very useful. Animations, interactions are really useful. Another thing in tech, when people are presenting their product websites, right? And they have a lot of laundry list of features, and you'll kind of talk about how your product is amazing, how you're better than competitors, your value proposition. But in reality, as the audience, me, if I'm just looking at your website by something, I'm thinking, can I trust this company? Do other people use it? Does this actually make sense? A better way for you to say that would you just put a bunch of customer logos on your website, right? If you guys see these, it functions as social proof. It takes a complicated thing like trust and you boil it down to a few images. This makes it really easy for the audience, in this case, someone looking at your website, to understand what you mean. Another one related to design. So a lot of you guys are designers. When we create designs, we make prototypes and mock-ups. And one big issue is how do we make it feel real? And I don't mean just make a higher fidelity prototype. What I mean is how do you make this app feel like it could actually exist? How do you think that has weight, that it's not just kind of something on a screen that doesn't actually do something. So one of my tips is controversial is to put fake loading spinners and like loading bars inside your app to make it look like it's actually doing some work. I know it sounds really silly, but when you do that, people think something's happening in the background, and it makes it very easy for them to imagine what the world would look like if this thing actually existed. Right, so to recap, if you want to pitch anything, first step is you have to know your audience. You have to know that they're using their crocodile brains when they're listening to your presentation or looking at your mock-up. So it's your job to boil things down to something that's easy to understand. If you can do that, you can pitch anything in the world. Thank you.
Question over there. Slide with this very I saw an icon for sketch and what that
I just want to go to images. I don't know what those. Yeah.
I just want to add on the loader. It actually showed when we had an application to do a lot of image processing. So we were showing the result to the user in a second, but they didn't like it. They were like, I don't think so, it is happening. But when we put loader for 5 seconds, they said, yeah, it's happening. That's
Yeah,
actually
the loading thing is huge. I know like big websites like Facebook have they fake how long the thing was for. Got to do a science.
Yeah.
Because people they were trained to look at apps when there's a spinner, you think something is happening. And so if you violate that in a mock-up or a prototype, it just takes them out of the experience. It doesn't feel good.
The same thing with the Google Voice stuff that they have for companies to be able to have the automatic like NLP. Like they realize that if you talk to a computer and responds to you really quickly, it seems artificial because that's not how humans work. So they built in a buffer for like a second or two, pause, and then they respond because that's how humans.
Yeah, super quick story. So like I had a chatbot company, and at the beginning our AI wasn't really working. And it was actually just, we piped it so that when someone talks to the Slack bot, it actually comes to me in my Slack, and then I would respond back. The problem was that like, I needed to make it sound like a bot, and the whole point of the bot was trying to sound like it's human. So it was me trying to sound like a bot of Kenny Vision, and it got really complicated. Yeah.
Let's give Ashton a round of applause. And last but not least, Rob's going to tell us how to transition from apparel design to user design. Give Rob a round of
applause. Oh, that's what I sound like. Okay. So, hi, my name's Robert, and I'm from a place called Guernsey, in the Channel Islands, somewhere between the UK and France, and there's a lot of cows. So, decided to get off the island, explore the world, and went to art school. And then I got into fashion design, so I studied fashion design. And from fashion design, is this thing moving? Expression. Oh, there we go. So there's Guernsey, there's the world, and here's my studies. And then through my career, I got into sportswear design and did a master's degree in performance sportswear design. And a lot of questions that I get when talking to people in the UX world is, what the hell has apparel design got to do with UX design? So after working for many different companies, I got to work for Puma. And very proud to say that I worked for the Jamaican national team, did some awesome designs, and this is Usain Bolt, champion runner, wearing my kit. So I got to work with a lot of awesome people. Here's another more recent project. I got to work with Alex Honnold and some other people, Jimmy Chin, and to share some other great things. I got an award from Time Magazine for the short, and there's Alex giving me the thumbs up in his free photos. Yes. So I spent a lot of time working with athletes, and process, pretty messy, but you have to do a lot of research. And working with athletes, we did this thing called Athlete Summits. So we get to spend each season, each time new projects, and working on old previous designs. We get to spend a lot of time with the athletes. Sam and I become a good buddy of mine, but I'd spend day in, day out, at least for 6 months, working on this new project, doing everything with him, including training at 6 in the morning, which is horrible. That's my scared ass over on the right side. So we did a lot of questions and questioning. We also had this thing called the live athlete diary, which was where they would literally text or video stuff in, so you could record that data. And you could find out about things that they're into, things that they don't like, things that don't work. This jacket's terrible, it's fucking freezing, it's freezing, or good things, in fact. So I'm sure you're familiar with this type of thing, but we did a lot of all that information, put it onto big giant boards, and distilled it down, and then focused what the hell we would design or make better. So that synthesis and ideation, for me, I did a lot of sketches, but a lot of the feedback was, this pant doesn't fit when I'm wearing my harness, I need pockets in the right place. So I engineered these things after these discussions with various athletes. So that messy process is a thing, and I think you're familiar with this process, but the better part is the iteration part. Is of course emphasizing with the users, defining what you're building, ideating that, building prototypes, and then testing them. And here's a little overview of the product. If you like it, it's in store now. There's a lot of cool colors. It's only a little bit. Jacket's on this, but yeah. So, one of the other aspects of research that I do is focus. Oh, it's fine. Okay, so yes, tech packs or annotations you're more familiar with. So doing designs and sketches is good, but how do you hand it over to the development team and in fact the factories and the Far East to understand your work? So this isn't exactly like this. I sort of overlaid some stuff, but basically using all the right information. And missing from this one, but you're more familiar with this type of annotation. It's about handing over the right information to your developer or your engineer, so you can get communicated designs that you prefer. Long 20 seconds. Okay, there's a sneak anime. Oh, hello. There's a button. You know what that is. Okay. That's good. Okay.
They probably that's 20 seconds.
It'll probably skip to the end slide. So anyway, so there is a lot of interesting aspects of my career. Oh, there we go. So it's sped fast. I can't go. I did a lot of trend work for magazines. Pantone just flipped up there. They're one of the bigger trend color companies out there. And some of that interesting work is based around understanding users as well. So this is a snapshot of Pantone View, which is in digital form, where I had to learn to transfer textile colors that I worked with into hex. I was like, understand now. So all these colors had to work for a digital platform. So I put this one up because it was something that I did on San Francisco. So trend and color is definitely important. A lot of people are like, is that like predicting the future? It isn't exactly, but it's certainly understanding patterns. And by understanding the patterns is literally trends. So you sort of work towards a future product. So another thing we're very familiar with in Instagram world is images. So images of visual trends, and most millennials are very into that. And so every day 95 million photos of those Instagram is number. So a lot of these interesting stories that people tell are very relevant for my trend. This you've already seen. This is something that I worked on with my partner Chris. The Google app. So this is where some of that trend, color, and information came in to help build the UI product. And you heard a story about it. This is another project that I worked on with Bay Area Clean Cars for All grant system that wanted to connect with their user at their website and was pretty terrible. So it was more connecting with the user in a language based to understand how they could apply and changing that language on the website would bring more traffic, basically. So I wanted to share that story with you because I know that a lot of people here, some people from the GA or some people who are within tech and UX come from different backgrounds, such as architecture, industrial design, or education, or healthcare. And I know it's challenging, but it is what makes you unique. And your unique story is your superpower in this competitive digital world. So if it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. That's where I am today. And thank you.
Any questions for Rob?
What app did the different athletes give the feedback on the diary? How was that?
It wasn't an app that we developed.
No, I'm just saying, like, how did they give you the feedback? On that slide, it looks like it was through a certain app.
Yeah, so there were various methods. Instagram was, we had like certain channels. So often, like with some of the athletes, I, sometimes just text or a picture or an email. So there were lots of ways of documenting. We had to document it. It'd be nice if there was like a specific diary app.
My question was how like I guess like what was the incentive for them to give feedback? Were they just like enthusiastic and they're like, sure, I'll give you
They're
feedback?
absolutely enthusiastic about their lifestyle, and making things better for the better of everyone. Some of those instances, it's life-saving stuff. So, yeah.
That's cool.
Was anything you did for Alex in the documentary?
You know what? He makes lots of free gear. He tends to like one t-shirt for the longest time and trying to get him out of that red t-shirt that he was wearing in that particular documentary. It was difficult, but he definitely liked that red shirt. There's another reason behind that red shirt. It works well in photography films. The color itself. Hi.
You talked about like training colors, like 30, like outside of
I guess I've been working in trend for a long time, so Pantone themselves have very good online presence with trend reports. There is also something in the industry called WGSN, which provides a lot of trend reports, covers a lot of global information, could be from finance, from film, from politics, and all of the movies, all these trends related to that, and schools. Of course, my own professional traveling.
Well, let's give Rob a round of applause. And a big thank you to all our presenters. We hope to do more like this. In the past, we've done things like portfolio reviews, which I think were appreciated. And obviously, as you know, we do a lot of tutorials about design tools and things like Math's great presentation at the start of this year about trends and topics in UX and UI. So we'll see what the December event brings, but in general, to the new members, thank you for joining us tonight, and we hope to see you guys in a month. Thank you.